Hello and welcome to the big story right here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa. The federal government has unveiled a new solar energy initiative aimed at powering public institutions across Nigeria, from schools and hospitals to government offices. Officials say the program will cut dependence on the national grid, lower operational costs, and promote cleaner energy use. But the questions remain: how long will it be funded? Can it be sustained? And what does it mean for Nigeria's wider energy transition goals? Well, today I'm joined in the studio to unpack these opportunities, the challenges, and the impact of this initiative with our guest today, Dipo Oladehinde, the head of the energy desk here at Business Day. Welcome to the show, Dipo.
Yeah, welcome. Good morning, Elizabeth, and thanks
Good
for
to
having
see
me.
you. Good to see you today. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. How about you?
Very well, thank you. Let's start with the big picture today. What exactly has the federal government announced with, this initiative, and what makes this solar initiative quite significant?
Yeah, okay. So what the government is trying to do basically is to prioritize clean energy. The government is trying to reduce its energy cost. If you look at the line item in the 2024 and 2025 budget, one of the biggest line item for recurrent expenditure has been the cost of diesel or the cost of powering public infrastructures or public utilities. And so the government is gradually transiting to reducing carbon emission, first of all, and then, of course, reducing its energy costs. And one of that ways is to increase its dream or its plan to have a solar initiative. So the aim is to prioritize government's public infrastructures that are of high, they call it high priority. So we talk about health, we talk about education, we talk about public utilities regarding primary health care center, primary schools, secondary schools, universities, and so those are the first set of public institutions that will be benefiting from this solar initiative. After a while, of course, they'll be transiting to Ministry of Finance, Ministry of National Defense Academy, NDA, and other major ministries or parastatals, as the case may be.
But why did they decide to, choose public institutions as the primary beneficiaries of this initiative?
Well, again, this is government, right? The government would always start in-house. Let's not forget when the CNG drive, they talk about auto gas, they talk about converting majority of the petrol gas to gas vehicle. The government had to be at the forefront of it.
Right.
So the government is saying, oh, charity needs to begin at home. They need to start the initiative first of all before they start preaching to everyone
Right.
that, look, we need to prioritize solar. So if the government itself is not prioritizing its own infrastructure or its own public utilities, then there'll be a lot of question mark on why you are spreading a campaign that you yourself are not a firm believer in. And again, the reason why priorities are given to schools and primary healthcare center is it's always assumed that education and healthcare should be the founding institution or the founding agencies of any sustainable government. So you look at Human Development Index, how you perform in terms of education, how you perform in terms of providing primary healthcare are always key indicators of how developed economy will be in the next 10 or 15 years. So I think it's ideal the government is prioritizing schools. And so you look at federal universities, you talk about the big ones, and then you look at healthcare centers as well. You look at the teaching hospitals in Nigeria. So yes, I mean, it's a step in the right direction if properly implemented.
Right, and what we always know and what we've seen over time is funding being a stumbling block for, some of these renewable projects that we have in Nigeria. What do we know about how this project is going to be financed?
Okay, so what I know they've set up is so there's something they call National Public Sector Solar Initiative, right? Now, under this initiative, there are a lot of agencies and government institutions involved. There is the Rural Electrification Agency, there is REA, there's Ministry of Finance, there's Budget Office, there is InfraCrop, that's Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria, there's Ministry of Finance Incorporation Limited as well, who is also a part of it. So again, the idea is this initiative is 100% financed by governments, but there are government institutions that are run like companies. For instance, the Ministry of Finance Incorporation is more or less like a limited liability company that takes its own decision as a CEO and then is able to go through the lifespan of a project. So the idea is you are going to get everyone involved. So if you're able to get REA, who will bring you the technical expertise, Ministry of Finance, who can spread the payment for a period of time, and then Ministry of Finance and Corporation or InfraCrop, which are managed by, I mean, these are companies that are managed by seasoned expertise in terms of infrastructure, who understands what it means to fund the projects, both pre-project and then post-project plan. So, I mean, it's expected that all of these agencies would see the lifespan of the projects, and then they would be able to see the project through, both from start till the end. I mean, all of this boils back to implementation. So if all of these agencies are able to work like a team, not working in disarray, if they're able to work like a team, put heads together, I think it's a starting point for success or many things to come.
So you've mentioned, seeing the project through from start to the end, and that brings me to what I'm very curious about now, to know if there are timelines to the rollout of this project. Do we have any timelines? Also, are there private agencies? Are there other agencies that are also going to be a part of the execution?
Okay, so there are no timelines yet. What was basically announced by the government is the plan. Who are the people behind the plan, and who are the people that would ensure the plan would, of course, be a success. So we don't have a timeline yet. So that's the first one. So the second one is about what's the criteria for how would these be able to sustain, or how will you be able to manage this infrastructure or this facility? Now, this is it. Solar is is not as, yes, the complex part of it is installing, and then after a while you need to do maintenance. Now, maintenance is not as tedious as when you are on the grid, or when you are doing when you are generating power, when you are transmitting power, when you are distributing power. With solar, it's quite different. So when you get the panels in, you're able to get good batteries. All you need to do is just basically maintain the panels, and then of course basically make sure that the batteries are well maintained. And so if you are handing it over to schools or public institutions like University of Lagos, it's always assumed that you would have technical expertise there, which the government can also leverage on within the school system, that should be able to take care of these facilities. And again, the idea is this: if you look at how much the government is spending on maintaining University of Lagos, as the case may be, especially in terms of power bills per month, per year, I mean, we are talking about billions of naira. Putting this solar initiative the plan is to make sure you reduce the costs by at least half, and then channel that fund to other areas that the school might need for development. Again, all of this is at the early stages, and this is the first time we are doing something like this. So it's always assumed there will be challenges. There would be one or two areas that you won't get right. But then all of these are part of the learning curves that will be used for other agencies, as the case may be.
And how much impact are we looking at seeing now? Realistically, if we're talking about the impact it's going to have on institutions and all of that, what are we foreseeing?
Okay, so the impact is, I mean, it depends on the angle you're looking at it from. So there's a first
energy
angle,
cost, and
there's a first angle of reducing your energy bill. There's another angle of reducing carbon emission, because you're not flaring flames into the air as a result of diesel generators, so you're promoting a cleaner environment.
Right.
There's another angle of the cost implication of the noise effects of running diesel generators. People have always argued that it's not the best or the most efficient way to power any utility or any government's parastatals. So that's another angle. And then there's the economic effect of it. So what you are doing is the government's decision to prioritize public schools. So you'll find a lot of private enterprise, a lot of SMEs, a lot of people say, look, if the government is paying attention to solar, so maybe it's high time I need to also pay attention to solar. So you find developers coming into Nigeria and say, we need to set up business in Nigeria. You find a lot of renewable investments or renewable investors around, global renewable investors, who would say, okay, let's pay attention to Nigeria. It seems the government is, because if the government is putting its money where its mouth is, then it's always assumed that policies will be favorable. We won't have issues of difficulties of clearing solar panels at the ports. We won't have issues of people waiting forever to get license to do certain things that ought to be approved within a day or two. I mean, so all of these things are benefits. So across the value chain of just prioritizing solar or going renewable or going green, there's a lot Nigeria can benefit. And again, the national grid I've been here several times to talk about how inconsistent the national grid
The
is,
national grid is
how
actually
unreliable
inconsistent.
it is, and how it keeps flipping every year. We're having grid collapse at different points in time. The grid is not able to power majority of, I don't know of any competent or reliable institution today that does not have a plan B in terms of power, both in terms of banks, in terms of insurance companies, or in terms of even the media. So the idea is you reduce the number of exposure to the national grid, so that power that should be given to institutions like the schools can of course be transferred to underpowered or on communities that have not been receiving power for a period of time. Again, so all of this is good. Again, implementation might be our biggest problem, which happens to every or other government's brilliant initiatives, as the case may be.
And that shows me a problem. So how are we looking to avoid, you've highlighted some of the impact that we will get from this. So we're not supposed to now still be dealing with implementation challenges, although you've alluded to the fact that that's always something that some of our government initiatives tends to face. So how are we looking to curb that?
Okay, so I think one of the biggest advantage of this initiative is before now, plans like this would have it sitting on the table of the Ministry of Power or just REA alone. But now you are finding 3, 4, 5 government agencies coming together. So you have private government agencies that are well run, like of course public limited liability companies also coming into play. We have people with infrastructure expertise as well also being part of this project. So and this is a win-win scenario for Nigeria. So if the government is able to release funds as at when due, and I think this would be a brilliant initiative considering the kind of people who are on board. For instance, InfraCrop, for instance, is a very good, reliable infrastructure institution that have managed other infrastructures in Nigeria, well run by, of course, people with private experience, private technical expertise, as the case may be. You have Harrier as well, who have handled similar projects in terms of energizing public institutions. We just need to be positive and expect that all of these plans would come into the timeline. So again, so you asked the question about timeline. So the government needs to be clear about the timeline so that everyone can put his or her hands on deck and say, okay, look, what are the things we need to achieve at a certain period of time? So if within now and December 2025, what are the expected KPIs to be met for H1 or Q1 next year? What will be the expected KPI? So that we can track, and then in times where things are not going in plan with what the governments have delegated, we can easily call it out and say, hey, look, this person needs to put it out in order, this person needs to sit right, as the case may be.
Right. And Dipo, are there any maintenance sustainability challenges for solar projects in Nigeria? And how are we actually looking to address some of these challenges?
Well, so Nigeria is still at its let me use the word teething or babying stage in terms of solar. We are not there yet. All of this talk about solar is just it's a new phase. So we are not like the United States of this world. We are not like other developed countries that have moved beyond the teething stage. So see it as a baby. When you give birth to a newborn baby, at some point this baby would make mistakes, it will crawl. In the process of trying to walk, the baby would make some steps, it will fall down, and then of course it would always rise up again. So back to maintenance. So yes, you don't expect the government to be putting funds as high as 100 billion on a project without plan for post project plan or post event plan. So yes, I'm very sure there will be maintenance in part of the plan or whatever you are doing. The most important thing is the responsibility of the institutions that have been assigned for these projects, right? So if the schools themselves decide to take it up among themselves and say, look, these projects have been assigned to us, we also need to play our role in terms of maintaining, because there's little the government can do from Abuja down to wherever institutions these projects are managed. So the government needs to first of all provide the funds, see that the project is well completed, and then the institutions that are benefiting from it also have a responsibility to make sure that they utilize it well. It's like giving a phone to a graduate going to school. Yes, you've done your part giving the graduate the phone, but he or she needs to be responsible on how he or she is using it. So that's the case in terms of solar as well.
And speaking to the broader narrative of Nigeria's renewable energy and climate commitment, How does this fit into that initiative?
Yeah, I mean, it fits perfectly well because a lot of people have expressed doubt about solar. Some have argued that this talk about solar is expensive, it's not feasible, it's not sustainable, it's not. There've been a lot of question mark about solar. So now that the government is taking the bull by the horn, the government is basically saying, look, we'll champion this drive. So that's the first thing. The second major thing is government is also concerned about reducing costs. Let's not forget that diesel before used to be around 200 naira, 300 naira per liter. Now we are seeing diesel prices about 1,000 naira, in some cases 1,200. And in some other states, we are seeing diesel prices as high as 1,500. So the government is conscious about reducing costs, especially the costs that are not, that has no long-term benefit really. These are recurrent costs that could be managed. And then this funds that are saved from recurrent expenditure could as well be channeled to capital expenditure in other places. So, I mean, it's a good thing. It's brilliant on paper. I mean, we just need to watch it and then see how the progress would attain to with Nigeria.
And let's talk about creating opportunities and the opportunities that are present in this initiative. Are we seeing more opportunities for, like local solar manufacturing or even installment companies? Are we seeing more opportunities for them within this initiative?
Yeah. So it's expected that initiative like this would attract attention to that space. Now, sometimes attention, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to start producing things locally. Sometimes you just need to play up your strengths and say, look, what's our area of strength? Is it cheaper to produce in Nigeria than to import? Is it cheaper to import solar panels than to produce in Nigeria? Do we have the technical expertise to produce in Nigeria? So all of these would be part of the conversation going forward. But what I do know is we don't have enough capacity yet to rely strictly on local production. So we still need to import. And so yes, we'll be importing solar panels, but beyond just importing the equipment, we'll also be importing the skills, the talents that will be needed to manage all of these facilities. And so another thing we need to pay attention to is the fact that before now, I mean, solar conversation is not very, very popular. But now with initiatives like this, you'd see, it's expected that you start seeing schools adjust their curriculum to include things around solar, to include things around renewable energy, to include things around boosting green energy, as the case may be. I used to remember there is a school at University of Ibadan that focus strictly on petroleum engineering or petroleum economics, as the case may be. Now we'll find schools like that as well, also including the economics of solar, the economics of renewable energy. So, I mean, there is a skill gap aspect that we still need. There is an equipment aspect that we clearly are not well enough. But what I do know is things like this would always attract global attention, because anytime the government is having initiatives or putting initiatives in certain things, of course, you'll find a lot of people talking about it. And the moment they are talking about it, I mean, that's the starting point for investments, for value addition or value creation for the economy, as the case may be.
Right, and you've been covering the energy space for a while now. So, based on the trends, based on experience, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that this project might face in terms of getting to actualization, the failures, the risks?
I think the biggest risks we face is, which I mentioned earlier, implementation.
Right.
Seeing the plan through from point A to point Z. That's the first challenge. The other challenge is maintenance. Nigeria has a very, very poor attitude in terms of maintaining quality infrastructure. So the ghosts of how we've been unable to manage previous infrastructure would always come back to what we are doing in the present. That's the second one. The third one, which you cannot rule out, is corruption, people under supplying or bringing in inferior materials for inflated budgets, as the case may be. I mean, all of those risks will be part of it. So I mean, those are the biggest challenges I can see at the top of my head. As the project goes along, it's always expected that there will be unprepared challenges like what we witnessed when the COVID war happened, where the COVID basically disrupted a lot of things, or the Russia-Ukraine war, where the global supply chain started seeing increase in prices as a result of non-movement of goods across European countries. So, I mean, we would have risks that you can prepare for, and then you would have risks that are unforeseen that you would always expect as well. So, we just pray that things will get it right once and for all.
Absolutely. And if we're to look at, we want to measure success in the next 12 to 24 a month for the public? How do we measure success?
Well, so success is the government's releasing fund. That's one. Success is we dividing this project into different phases and say what is phase one of this project. There's a big project that comes to mind when it comes to Nigeria's energy sector. We talked about the Siemens deal. The Siemens power project was supposed to be the next big thing in Nigeria's energy sector. A lot of plan, a lot of talk, a lot of promises, and I mean, I'm not saying the project is dead now, but the pace is a bit slow. So success would be we moving at a faster pace. Success is the government actually putting its money where its mouth is. Success is we actually achieving certain KPI for different stages of the project. And I think once people start seeing success, or once people start seeing development, or once schools around Nigeria can boast of 24 or 20-hour constant power supply, relying on solar alone, I think that's the beginning of greater success to come.
All right, thank you very much, Dipo Oladehinde, head of the energy desk here at Business Day. Thank you for joining us on the big story this morning. That's where we leave it today. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Keep watching BDTV.